To begin, you want to make sure that all of your tape is smoothed down really well from the last time. If there are any bubbles or areas that are not pressed down fully, your watercolor will sneak under the tape and it will not resist the paint. We will be using the wet on wet technique to add color to our sky. This will help it look more blended and natural and less like stripes. First, take plain water and brush it across the entire surface of the sky portion only. Decide if you'd rather use cool colors, warm colors, or a combination of both. If you use all warm colors or all cool colors, there aren't really any rules for how you blend things together. If you choose to use some warm and some cool, such as I have in this demonstration, you want to be careful not to overmix your colors or you'll end up with a bunch of browns. If you're going to use a combination of both, I suggest starting with one color family first, like here I'm doing all the cool colors first, and then gently press your second color family into your painting, not really brushing it in and blending it. You can let the wet on wet technique do the mixing for you. So here, when I'm adding in my yellow, I'm kind of just dotting it in the purple and letting the paint mix itself. That's the beauty of the wet on wet technique. Another watercolor technique that will add some visual interest and texture to your work is using salt on top of wet watercolor. This is optional, so you don't have to do this, but it will create a really beautiful speckled texture in certain areas when your paint has dried. So if you choose to use it, sprinkle, don't dump a lot, just sprinkle a little bit of salt across your sky, and then you leave it there to dry. And you'll see in just a minute what it looks like once it's dry. Next, we want to move down into your snow section. We discussed how even though we know snow is white, it actually does reflect some of the color from your sky. We will again use the wet on wet technique for this. So you're going to brush some water across the snow section. Your water might be a bit dirty at this point, and that's okay. We don't want your snow to be as dark and vibrant as your sky. It should be lighter values or kind of more watered down. Instead of getting paint from the tray this time, you're actually going to use paint that's just sitting on top of your tape. So you're going to pick up some of the extra paint on your tape and bring it directly down to the area below that tree. This should add some color to your snow, but still keep it relatively light in value. If you feel like it looks a little bit too dark, then rinse your brush out and just get some water and kind of blend it down so it's not quite as dark. The last thing we want to work on are the shadows created by your trees. Take a paper towel and blot up, don't rub or wipe, but kind of press and blot up the extra puddly water. That way your shadows don't diffuse too much. I would use a cool color paint for this part. And for this part, you are going to want to use a flat brush with a red handle. It'll give you much better precision when painting your lines. You're going to start at the base of your trunk and you're going to pull a line of paint all the way off to the bottom or the side edge. And you want to make that line be about as thick or as wide as your tree. You're going to repeat on each tree, trying to use similarly angled lines as your first, or kind of like parallel lines. If you start painting your line and you hit another tree, just paint right over the tape and continue off the edge of your paper. I would also go back up at the end and you can paint some smaller shadows that are being cast from your evergreen trees as well. These should be shorter and should not extend off the bottom edge of your page. Once you finish, you are going to very carefully carry or ask for help carrying your paper to the drying rack, you want to try to keep it flat, especially if you have puddles. That way your paint does not drip.